So now that you've done your step-by-step of how to draw furniture in a room, I want to talk a little bit about creating your room perspective project or project for this unit, which is going to be worth 100 points. I'm just going to kind of introduce it in a general way today, and then we're going to get into the bits and pieces, more specific things on Wednesday. I'm going to have a sheet with the instructions, and I'm going to review that, and we'll talk about more specific things then. Okay, but generally it's about creating your ideal room and having fun with that, using your imagination. It can be any type of room that you typically find in a house, but it could be an office, a workspace, that kind of thing. That would be okay as well. Doesn't have to be a bedroom. It can be an office in a house, an office or den. It could be a living room, family room. It can be kitchen. Okay, so there are a lot of different opportunities for ways that you can go with it. So you can look at this as a fairly complex example. The illustration that you're looking at right now, it has a lot of things going on. There's a nice little platform that's raised up where the bed is sitting. You can see a desk on the left side. Really a nice way to introduce space with the closet on the left side. And then we have some things going on above our horizon line with our ceiling area. We have some light fixtures, a larger light in the center of the room, and we just generally see a really nice use of perspective lines. We know that there's a vanishing point in here somewhere. We may have to kind of guess where that is a little bit, but based on where our perspective lines are taking our eye, we know that there's a vanishing point, there's a horizon line, and then we have, of course, our perspective lines. So here we have another room, and you're going to be adding things like furniture, textures, which we haven't talked about so much, but textural things like a rug would certainly be textural. Other things, furniture coverings, things like that can also utilize texture. I certainly want to see some interesting patterns and some fun colors going on. So if we look at this image, we see cubes, right? I'm going to talk about this over and over again as we work on this project. Start with cubes, turn them into furniture, and before you know it, you have a room. So if you look at that center coffee table, started with a cube, and then just like we did on our bed design, right? Adding that smaller rectangle, we're cutting out space, right? We're cutting that space out, creating those legs. You look at the sofas on either side, started with a cube. You can see the front rectangles, right? They're getting cut off a little bit, but started with those front rectangles, added our sides and top of our cube, cut those shapes out, and before you know it, you have a sofa design, right? And then some freeform drawing in there with some pillows, things like that, and creating that idea of depth and space. Here's a fun room, student work. Added a lot of fun colors in here and some fun designs on the walls. Also notice right away that skylight on top, very large skylight for a room, especially for a bedroom, right? Covers the whole ceiling, but it does show perspective. And that's one of the requirements that I'm going to be having on this project is that you're going to be required to include or show perspective above, on, and below the horizon line. Here's a nice example. One of my students earlier in the school year, she used the wood flooring on the bottom, nicely shaded with those kind of smooth blends. Ceiling, again, has sort of a wood texture feeling, and nice use of perspective above our horizon line. She did a built-in closet on the left side to add that sense of space, right? A cutout inside that wall. Very nice. Here's a room, has some fun textures, some interesting colors going on, some things I'd like to see you playing around with, and nice use of space. A lot of people put shelves in their rooms. Shelves can be a little bit tricky, but they are cubes. Look at that front rectangle on the shelf up there. Right? Perspective lines go back to the vanishing point because above the horizon line, we're seeing what? We're seeing the bottom of the shelf, right? Remember that. Things that are above your horizon line, you're going to see the bottom of it. Things on the horizon line, you're only going to see the side. And then things below the horizon line, you're going to see the top and probably a side. Okay? Keep that in mind whenever you're making your cubes. Where are they in relation to your horizon line? Very important. Here's a nice room done by one of my students. And this one has some nice depth created by the bookshelf on the right. We have sort of a built-in cabinet on the left that has additional space. Simple checkerboard on the ceiling, but it's effective in creating that idea of perspective, drawing us back into space. And then we have this sort of day bed, again a platform, sort of built up with the cushions on it, and then she drew some nice free-form pillows. And then we have our little landscape outside the window. Very nice. Another room done by a student, and right away my eye goes up to those, I'm not sure if they're skylights or lighting fixtures up on the ceiling, but they use perspective in a good way, even though they're not dimensional. They aren't coming out of the ceiling. They're flat, built up into the ceiling, but they still are using perspective, still showing perspective. And look at the cubes in the room, right? The dresser, the bed, the nightstand, the bookshelf, those all started with cubes. And then they added things to those to make them look like pieces of furniture. The area rug on the floor uses perspective lines and a couple horizontal lines and helps to feed into that idea of creating depth in the room. Here's another room. Has a couple interesting things. Not real excited about the way that it's colored. Looks a little bit messy. It may have been done with marker, but I like the color scheme. The color scheme is nice. I want you to look at a couple things in here. The desk on the right side, big cube, right? And then they did something a little bit different, the way that they cut the front out of that. They cut the front out, but they left these some space in there for these 3 drawers, right? To add a little bit of detail. It isn't just a big cutout, so you see the sides. That's an interesting way to do that. If you look at the chair, that's a cube. And again, cutting out, putting those inside, inserting those additional rectangles in there to cut out those leg shapes. That's a good way to do it. Look at that bookcase in the back. Now the bookcase, is the bottom of the bookcase in line with the bottom of that back wall? No, it's dropped down a little bit, right? The bottom of the bookcase is lower on our page than the bottom of that back wall. Why is that? It's because the bookcase has depth, right? It's coming away from the wall. It's unlike the picture frame that's on the wall, right? That's pretty flat. A bookcase is going to have more depth. So we need to show that it's in the room on the floor. So we're going to bring that out a little bit to communicate that idea of space, right? So there's some tricky things that I want you guys to think about as you're getting into drawing your room. Okay, if something is just on that line, on that back wall, again, it's going to look flat. We want everything to look dimensional. That's supposed to be dimensional in our room. Here's a great example. Another student of mine earlier in the school year did this amazing kitchen. Nice use of cubes here with those cabinets, right? Taking us right back into space. And then look over on the left side. There's something interesting happening. There's actually a doorway, and we're looking into another room with a table and a chair over there. So he's adding this sense of space as though we could walk into this other room adjacent to our kitchen. Creates a really, really interesting look to do that. And part of the effectiveness of that is these floorboards that he's added in. See, they're all going back to that vanishing point, these floorboards. And then he's rotated, like the hands of a clock, remember that, right? He's rotated his ruler so it goes right over into that room. We're not seeing it through the wall, but we are seeing it in the space of that room. And it all looks continuous. It looks like it's going back. A very nice sense of depth. And if you look closely, I love this, the little window in the back shows a little landscape. right? That's where our vanishing point and our horizon line are, right in that little window. Very clever. Cool thing to put in his drawing. Now I'm going to show you, this is actually a sketch that same student who did the kitchen, this was his rough draft for what he wound up doing for his final drawings. And this is something I want you to start thinking about. What is your room going to be? What are the things that you're going to include in it? And then next class, we're going to start sketching that out in a rough draft before we get to our final drawing. Okay, so rough draft is exactly what it sounds like. You don't have to use exact perspective, and I don't want you to waste time on that. I just want you to kind of get things in place that you're going to be including in your room. And if you want to get a jump on this for next time, you can certainly do that. If you've finished the other things, the other assignments that I've been asking you to do, you're caught up, you can get a jump start on this. So again, decide what type of room you want to do. Is it a bedroom? Is it a workspace, a family room? And then you're going to come up with some things that are going to be in the room and then start drawing them as you would like them to look. Okay, so you're not turning this in today, your sketch. That's going to be for next time. We're going to start to get into that as I give you some more specifics, some more direction on the actual project. Okay? All right, so we will come back. We'll be working on this next class.